Our worship service last week began our sermon series for the summer and turned our full attention, well, mostly our attention. We had the cutest set of twins to baptize, so we were attending to that. We were also attending to the fruit of the Spirit. So we began our journey of discovery with the words of the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Galatians as found in chapter 5, verse 22, with the first fruit of the Spirit, which was love, an appropriate theme for such a grand Sunday. And today we turn to the second fruit Paul names as joy. But before we go there, I want to return for just a moment to something we named last week. There is a difference between the gifts of the Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit. To put it real simply, the spiritual gifts of the Spirit are our actions, the things we do. The fruit is the Spirit-shaped place from which our actions are rooted. So today we ask, what does it mean for the Spirit to grow joy in us? And how do we root what we do? How do we respond to all that life throws our way? In joy. I believe joy is often misunderstood. And I recently heard someone say that out of all the fruit of the Spirit, joy is the hardest to describe, and it's often taken for granted. It's not like the popular fruit, you know, apples and oranges and grapes. Joy is more like dragon fruit. You can't even describe it until you taste it, and even then, it's really difficult to describe exactly how a dragon fruit tastes. Caveat, I am glad we did not choose dragon fruit as a theme for coffee hour, because I don't know any recipes to fit that theme. And Carrie and Tony are like, and they are the people that I would go to ask. The famous 19th century author Herman Melville, Moby Dick, wrote these words: "The sweetest joys of life grow in the very jaws of its peril." I'll read it again. "The sweetest joys of life grow in the very jaws of its peril." Perhaps his words about joy resonate with you. Perhaps they confuse you. I think I understand what he means. I think we treat joy as if it means being happy all the time, smiling through everything and pretending that life does not hurt. But that is not the joy found in this fruit of the Spirit. The joy of the Spirit is not denial. It is not shallow cheerfulness. It is not forced positivity. It is not perpetual optimism. It is not a spiritual performance we put on so that people think we're faithful. To truly experience the second fruit of the Spirit, to truly know joy, is to know that true joy has grit. That this joy that Paul speaks of is a formidable force. I have seen joy at funerals. I have seen it in the waiting rooms of cancer treatment centers, hospital recovery rooms, at the bedside of dying loved ones, on the face of the bravest people I know in the face of devastation. Yes, I have seen joy. Joy can appear where we least expect it, not as denial or sorrow, but as nourishment for hope. And I do believe that our human understanding of joy is a misunderstanding. Perhaps joy is truly, completely a mystery then to some of us, like trying to describe the taste of dragon fruit, or to think of a recipe that might go well with it before we even take a bite. Many of you know my father's journey with Parkinson's. Recently, Parkinson's has entered another phase for my parents. This is such a debilitating disease. And it has placed some pretty serious hurdles in front of them, hurdles they have to try and jump over every single day. And on any given day, they just never know what they are going to have to face. My parents, in my memory, were always an energetic couple, always on the go, lovers of travel. They were always showing up to help others. If I had a leak or a broken down car or a crying baby, the first person I would call would be my dad, and he would show up, no matter what time of night, no matter where I was stranded. My parents were very active in their church and their kids' and grandkids' lives. They loved their gardens. They had 5 acres of gardens they took care of. They built their house from scratch, from the ground up on family land. They have lots to be proud of. They have lived a good life. They have walked in the way of Christ. But over the past few years, their actions have become more restricted, and they have become fearful about leaving their home without support. They are afraid to leave the house, and this brings them and us great sadness. And if I am completely honest, it's a desolate feeling to watch them experience all that they are feeling. Because sometimes I am also worried about taking them out of the house. I am fearful for them most days. And we are all fueled by the understanding that this is only going to be our life. We are also very aware that Parkinson's asks us to live in the moment, to seize the day, and there is a hopeful kind of joy found in at least trying. So we try. Even if we know there is a high probability of failure, which I know that all of us who love my father wish to protect him from experience any more failure. My father loves going out to breakfast. And the other morning, I met him and my mother at the house because we had made a plan weeks ago to go out to breakfast together. The plan was to visit my father's favorite restaurant, Uncle Charlie's in Weymouth. Perhaps you know it. When I arrived, my mother greeted me at the door with the saddest expression. She said, "I'm not sure what to do. Dad says he wants me to go with you to breakfast without him." So I went searching for Dad, and I found him standing in the bathroom, looking at the mirror, frozen in time. I got close and I put my hand on his back. Parkinson's causes people to freeze in place for long periods of time, and he had been frozen in place at the sink. And it was as if my hand on his back unfroze him like a game of freeze tag. He blinked, he focused, and turned his head and looked at me, not missing a beat, and in a very soft voice he said, "Hey, kid, I don't think I can go today. It's really hard to get in and out of chairs, and Uncle Charlie's is always packed and crowded. You don't need to lug me around. It's hard for me to move most times. And you and your mom can't move me all by yourself, especially with what your mother is going through." And I sat there wanting to scream and run out of the room, which would have not done anyone any good. So I said, "Okay, Dad, but I'm wondering if we might be able to pivot a little. Think this through. Maybe we can work it so you feel better about coming with us." And he looked silently into my eyes with a completely defeated look on his face, and he simply shook his head. I said, "Dad, we have a wheelchair in the garage. The one you haven't used yet. I know you said using the wheelchair admits defeat, but what if we just started using it to take trips out of the house? Not because you're giving up, but because you're outsmarting Parkinson's. And this will help us to safely get you out and about." I was trying to work on my father's competitive nature. He saw through me. And his response was a long run-on sentence, a softly spoken, barely audible list of worries, and his excuses and his what-ifs. See, Parkinson's tries to steal all, including his voice and his confidence. And I understood. I shared the same laundry list of concerns. And in that moment, I felt the isolating, debilitating effects of despair begin to creep in, and despair is the ultimate absence of joy. There is no joy in despair. There is no hope in despair. And so I straightened up and I blinked back tears and worked to breathe as I gazed upon the man who had overcome so many things. He's been blown up, set on fire, run over, I am not making this up, and then some. And he has recovered from it all. He has a faith that is not afraid to look at the impossible and laugh at it. To us, he is Superman. But Parkinson's has been his kryptonite. It's weakened him. Anyway, we decided not to listen to his wishes, as good daughters do. And my mom and I decided to call the restaurant. I know this is a long and windy story, but I'm getting at joy, I promise. We asked if there would be room for a wheelchair at the restaurant. I know there are regulations, but this place is packed. I don't think I've ever seen a space for a wheelchair in there. And we humbly asked if someone could maybe meet us in the parking lot and help us get Dad inside. We kind of expected to be brushed aside, told sorry. So we shared our situation with them, and we were feeling bad, asking for help, knowing how busy breakfast time is at Uncle Charlie's. But without hesitation, the voice on the phone responded with absolutely. We've got you. Bring Lloyd here. He will enjoy breakfast today. And with that, we tumbled out of the house. It was touch and go. We got into the car and we drove to Uncle Charlie's. He got the best seat in the house with a reserved sign on it and enough space for like 5 wheelchairs to fit. In the end, my father didn't actually even need to use his wheelchair. He insisted on using his walker. He wore his Vietnam hat on his head. And his eyes were sparkling with tears as we entered the restaurant because once again, he found himself humbled by the kindness of others. We were greeted by several staff members. They walked him over to the table as if he were royalty. And this proud man and his partner in life took a seat at the table, and they wept. But they were not crying because they were sad. That after living as good people, doing all the right things, that this was their lot in life. That's not why they were crying. They didn't expect because they did the right things that life would turn out perfectly. They were crying because they were overwhelmed by the real presence of God at work in their despair, bringing comfort, relief, and dignity and normalcy into just one moment of their day. And I was overwhelmed too. It is very hard to cut your pancakes when you cannot see your plate through a cloud of tears that you're trying very hard not to let fall. And as if that were not enough, as we were finishing our meal, a stranger came over to my father, and she put her hand on his back. She leaned down and she looked him in the face, and she said, "Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. And thank you for your courage." And this is what I mean by joy. This is how God shows up through us. And in that moment, joy exploded as it worked to push back against that despair, to remove the deep-seated fear and sorrow long enough for all of us to stop holding our breath, exhale, and take a bite of a pancake. Joy was found in trying. Joy was found in being helped. Joy was found in the kindness of strangers. Joy was found in courage. Joy was found in the vision needed to see the impossible journey before my dad and encouraging him to try because he would not have to face the impossible alone. God was there. God was there before we left the house. God was there before we got to the restaurant. God was there working. We often say, why would God care about the minutia of our lives? Who cares if this 70-plus-year-old veteran gets to have breakfast on any given day? God cares. Joy was found in the reminder that God is still present, even here, even now, even in the hard places. Joy does not ask us to lie about grief. Joy does not ask us to ignore pain. Joy does not ask us to minimize disappointment, fear, exhaustion, injustice. Joy looks at the world honestly. Joy tells the truth. Joy can sit beside tears. Joy can stand in a hospital room, in a hard conversation, in a season of uncertainty, in the middle of grief, and still whisper, "This is not the end of your story." I think many of us know what it is like to move through something we did not choose. A diagnosis, a loss, a conflict, a transition, a season when life felt heavier than we knew how to carry. And in those moments, joy did not look like laughter. It did not look like celebration. No, joy in those moments is much quieter. Joy is recognized in the strength to take the next faithful step. Joy is known to us through the friend who sits with us and doesn't try to fix things. Joy is the hymn that rises out of memory when we have run out of words. Joy is the deep breath that reminds us we are still here, still held, still accompanied by the Spirit of a living God. Joy does not remove the hard thing. Joy gives us a place to stand while we move through it. Joy does not deny our tears. Joy tells our tears are not the whole truth. Joy is the quiet confidence that even here, especially here, God is still breathing life. And joy remembers what despair forgets. That death does not have the final word. Empire does not get the final word. Injustice does not get the final word. Fear does not get the final word. And that love, that first fruit, love always wins. May it be so, now and forevermore. Amen.